Legs. A lot of legs. My legs. But they're growing. A lot of legs growing? Okay. Well, alright. Okay, seriously. What's going on here? Why is this happening so much? Alright, so you've probably heard about or seen these leg lengthening videos, and like me, question what exactly is going on. There are a lot of different explanations that are being thrown out, and of course, there's no shortage of criticism on this. But I think what we all really want to know is if it's legitimate. Rather than go into any lengthy introduction, let's get started. In this video, we're not going to get too overly technical. I won't be pausing videos and staring at people's stank feet. I just thought I'd share a few random thoughts, starting with a couple of observations and then end with some advice to both the critics and practitioners of this phenomena. And as usual, I welcome any criticism. Folks are free to let me know where I'm going wrong. Observation number 1. Spotting a fake doesn't equate to all of it being fake. You'd think this would go without saying. However, the current climate in the body of Christ these days is often to use anecdotal examples to come to blanket conclusions. But the fact is, just because you figured out possible ways it can be faked, or even demonstrate that in a certain instance it was faked, doesn't mean that's what's going on every time. There's pretty much a phony version of everything these days. In fact, nearly everything in the Christian experience can be counterfeited. So, obviously, the existence of a counterfeit doesn't negate the genuine. Observation 2. Manipulation doesn't tell us motive. I've watched a few videos by Mike Winger and Brandon Kimber claiming to demonstrate Todd White and others manipulating a person's legs. Some of their findings looked legit, others were kinda iffy and would seem to require more information before coming to a hard conclusion. For example, in this video, Brandon claims White is shifting the feet left in order to create the illusion of growth. But that wouldn't necessarily account for what we're seeing. One would need to know the exact length of the legs, almost to the centimeter, along with the exact degree of shift, in order to know for certain if the swing accounts for all of the apparent growth being witnessed, or something like that. But even if we assume there is movement or hand manipulation in some of these videos, there are a lot of potential variables in play here. For instance, if you're in a crouched position for more than a minute or two, it isn't hard to imagine that your arms might get tired if you're holding up someone's limbs. You may unconsciously lower one a little, raise the other, or shift your weight a few times, resulting in a swing or manipulation of the heel. The camera guy might do some shifting as well. So, if you get caught up in the moment and you're excited or really believing for a movement or healing to take place, obviously this could affect your ability to notice that the change in the leg isn't due to what you thought it was. All of these factors being considered, you could see why it may not be the best idea in the world to do what many critics are doing by accusing Todd and others of purposefully scamming people. It's possible they are. But obviously, without ruling out these other variables I've mentioned, along with variables we may not be privy to, it's you who could be lying and causing unnecessary division. Okay, so observations out of the way, I thought I'd offer a little advice. So to those who practice this, I would maybe recommend no longer recording it. At this point, critics have a near monopoly on social media. And these leg lengthening videos, legitimate or not, are probably doing more harm than good. If you do decide to record it, it may be a good idea to only do it in instances where there is a significant discrepancy and the person you're praying for is already aware of it. Also, it may be best to stop suggesting things to the person as you're praying for them, like, "It's feeling better, right?" Or, "The pain's gone now, right?" Maybe it's out of excitement and a desire to get feedback, but the power of suggestion is a pretty well-documented psychological phenomena. We don't want people to experience a counterfeit for the true power of God, nor do we want to come across as practicing some kind of hypnosis on these people. And some advice for the critics. Maybe try avoiding poisoning the well. Poisoning the well happens when you suggest negative information about someone to your audience, which then creates a bias so that they become overly critical and or antagonistic toward them. We talk about this in our video on the genetic fallacy. To an extent, creating bias in your audience may be somewhat unavoidable, but there are ways you can soften the blow. For example, if you're going to critique some of these Todd White videos, why not find one or two that looked more legit and say something like, "In other videos, I couldn't pinpoint any manipulation. It's possible it was real, and God is using him to heal in these instances." This is something I've been dealing with a lot lately in myself. I know I could be doing a better job in my critiques. We don't want to perpetuate ignorance and bad evaluation habits. Even if these guys are all a bunch of frauds, folks need to arrive at that conclusion through fair and honest investigation themselves. I know it's tempting to badmouth, but that's a short-sighted goal that will result in more tribalism in the long run. In closing, I wanted to share with you my theory, also known as speculation, about why it may be so common. A while back, I asked about this in the John G. Lake Facebook forum. For those who don't know, JGLM is now run by Curry Blake, who, in my estimation, is an upstanding man of God. We've got a video on his story that I'll link below. I was surprised to see numerous testimonies of people who claim to have seen this happen and have had it happen to them or know someone who has. In fact, I know people who claim the same. In one instance, I was standing only feet away from a friend of mine who had it happen, and days later he told me all his back pain was still gone. So the question is, why does it seem so prevalent? As you've already heard, some people will say it's just an old parlor trick and it's easy to pull off, and that's why it's so common. But here's another theory. As far as I know, back and hip problems often result in one limb being shorter than the other, which would obviously mean if the back or hips were to be healed, the limbs would be even or close. Now, one thing you'll notice from these street healings that even critics have pointed out is that they are often for mild conditions such as backaches, headaches, and other internal types of pain. If this is the case, and people are being healed of back and hip conditions, then a good portion of these healings would involve changes in the length of the limbs. I think it's possible this practice became so commonplace because people praying for others figured out a way to actually observe healings taking place for milder conditions. So where there would have previously only been a testimony of the person saying the pain was gone, you could now actually see in a tangible way God healing the individual. Without some kind of special revelation from God, we aren't going to be able to know for sure exactly what is going on in every one of these instances. Like with nearly all testimonies, it will probably always remain a matter of faith. Alright, I'm out of leg puns and things to say. Thanks for watching, guys.